Hey everybody, what's going on? It's David. I'm here again talking Buffs, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, anything to do with the University of Colorado football. Thank you for checking out my channel. Really excited to share with you today a little bit more history about the University of Colorado football program and really how the stars aligned in a beautiful yet disastrous way that paved the road for Coach Prime to come here to Boulder to lead our CU Buffs. So before I get started, again, would really appreciate it if you hit that like, smash that subscribe button. We're on the journey to 1,000 subscribers, so you don't want to miss out on all the future Buffs content I got coming. Again, really appreciate the engagement I've had so far. Let's keep it going. Okay, well, let's get started. In 1995, Bill McCartney has just retired from coaching football to focus on his ministry, Promise Keepers, and so Rick Neuheisel takes over as coach. Have one great year, his first year in 1995, going 10-2. The next two seasons didn't go as well, but Rick leaves to go to the University of Washington because the Huskies are giving him a significant pay raise. So what does CU do after that? In the late 90s, they bring back longtime assistant Gary Barnett, and we have some success under him. A lot of NFL talent came through Boulder at the time. Again, in 2001, they had a 10-win season where they beat number one ranked Nebraska. You should go check that out, 62-36. They also beat Texas, knocked them out of a national championship appearance. Things were going really well for the Buffs. However, as we moved forward into the early 2000s, there were a lot of recruiting scandals with the football program in the university. I'm not going to get into detail on them right now. You could probably go search on YouTube or Google to find out exactly what was going on, but there was a lot of lawsuits that the university had to settle, a lot of terrible media attention on the program, and it was really just a period of a black eye and shame for the program, for alumni. And so when that happens, you lose boosters, you lose donors, you lose people that want to be associated with the university. And so out of that came some different sanctions. Some of them were self-imposed, such as with hosting high school recruits on official visits. The visit couldn't be more than one overnight period for the student, and they were not allowed to stay with current athletes for their visit. Now, this is a huge disadvantage because, one, how are parents going to trust you against other schools that don't have this kind of stuff going on? And I wanted to remind you that Gary Barnett was still retained during this time. Whether you want to say he knew about it or was responsible for it, whatever, but the man in charge should face some accountability. He did not at that period, and I really think that affected recruiting. Now, also the aspect of high school recruits coming in, you're not staying with current players. How are you going to get a real feel for what campus life is really like, and how are you going to create bonds with current players? All these other schools are able to do those things, and so you're going to see recruiting quality go down because of that. On top of that, from my understanding, CU did raise the academic requirements for their student athletes here at Boulder, which has stayed the course until recently. I'll get back to that later. But again, that kind of laid the groundwork for Colorado to have recruiting issues on a local and national level. So Gary Barnett, he left in 2005, and CU made a pretty exciting hire with Boise State's head coach Dan Hawkins coming into town in 2006. However, this turned out to be just a disaster on a lot of fronts. One, you can go back and listen to interviews with current players talking about their time with Dan Hawkins. The guy never adopted the Colorado Buffaloes history and culture. Throughout his time there, he's always just talking about, this is what I did at Boise State. In his office, he had photos of Boise State stuff. It's just not a good look, and you're not going to get buy-in from current players and players coming in that are coming to play for Colorado when Boise State is always going to be the discussion about what's going on with Coach Dan Hawkins. Now, on another aspect of things, this is kind of funny, is that Dan Hawkins brought in his son to start at quarterback for Colorado. Kind of similar to Coach Prime and Shadur. one difference is that Shedeur is a Power 5 level talent at the quarterback position. Cody Hawkins was a fringe Power 5 level talent. I think he was ranked around the 20th pro style quarterback in his class coming out, and that's just not enough to get players to want to come to play with that kind of quarterback if you know that he's going to be the starter. And so not only are you losing out on quality quarterback recruits for the future, you're losing out on pretty much everybody on the offense. And of course that affects the defense. You know, the quarterback is the premier position in football. If you're settling for something less than your best, how can you expect to recruit what's already a smaller pool because of the academic restrictions? How can you expect to get the top quality out of that pool when the quarterback position isn't anything special? And so Dan Hawkins was there from 2006 to 2010, not one winning season. And so as we're navigating into leaving the Big 12 for the Pac-12, John Emery comes in. He had a long history, played at the University of Colorado, was a coaching assistant throughout his coaching career at CU, and so this made a lot of sense. However, Coach Emery and his offensive coordinator at the time, Eric Bieniemy, longtime great buff, they made a strange decision to implement a pro-style offense to CU, which is one thing if you're a school such as Alabama where you already have superior talent, you're very focused on getting guys in the NFL, you know, that can make sense. However, when you're at an athleticism disadvantage and a talent disadvantage, going pro-style is going to make you competing in games against better teams even tougher, because with the rise of the spread offense, one of the reasons that became so popular is because you are able to do less with more because of the schemes and because of the spacing and the pace of play and all of that. So John Emery made some tough decisions, some bad decisions for the football program, and he was only there for 2 seasons, was fired after the 2012 season. Now, I also wanted to hit on, this is where recruiting also became even tougher, because previously in the Big 12, you can recruit guys from Texas because, one, they might not have had very good seasons recently, but in the 80s and 90s, Colorado was a powerhouse, and so you know the parents have a positive view to an extent about the university of what they could become in their heyday and what it was like when CU was successful. You also can pitch them on the fact that, hey, you will be traveling back to Texas to play football for a handful of games every year. Now, with moving over to the Pac-12, although it's been great, I think, academically and overall financially for the university for this move, very tough on the football recruiting aspect, because now you're trying to focus on California, where you don't have a presence or a relevancy in the state yet. It's just a disaster. So again, John Emery fired after a 1-11 football season, 2012, and who did we bring in? A coach that I think deserves more credit than what he gets with a lot of Buffs fans, and that's Mike McIntyre. He was here 2013 through 2018, and we had one of the most successful years in the last 20 years under him, which in 2016 we won the Pac-12 South. We had a 10-win season that was filled with a lot of seniors. We weren't really able to replicate that kind of quality of football because of that in 2017 and 18, where we only had 5 wins each year after that. However, Mike McIntyre came in from revitalizing San Jose State program, and really Deion Sanders, Coach Deion Sanders, he does not come here without Mike McIntyre being here, and that's because when McIntyre got here, he started to raise a lot of noise about the poor quality of the athletic facilities for Colorado, and was very adamant that if CU was going to compete at the Power 5 level, there needed to be a substantial investment in the facilities. So I think it was close to $200 million went into renovating those facilities during his time here at CU. And now you'll hear Coach Prime talk about this, or other college football media heads. The CU athletic facilities are some of the best in the country, and they're on par with the top programs in the country. And that's a big deal if you're a student athlete wanting to come in here and be your best. And so, although things didn't really work out with Mike McIntyre from a wins perspective outside of 2016, he really did lay the groundwork for us to go and hire somebody of Coach Prime's caliber, which is fantastic. Now, I will say again, I want to remind you, as we're moving through the 2010s, we're still having those academic restrictions and recruiting challenges. Now, this is where things get pretty exciting. Mel Tucker comes in. He's bringing that SEC mindset into Colorado, which is great. And Coach Mel Tucker was able to recruit. He was only here for 1 year in 2019, but some guys that I'm sure you've heard of, Brendan Rice, Christian Gonzalez. Well, I guess Mekhi Blackman was initially a Mike McIntyre guy, but Ashad Clayton was another 4-star that Mel Tucker was able to bring in. And we had the 36th ranked class that year, again, with these academic restrictions. And again, I think Mel Tucker saw the writing on the wall. He's a fantastic recruiter, and the fact that he was able to get that kind of recruiting class in here to Colorado with some of those restrictions at play, it made a lot of sense. Now, I do want to break this down a little bit more because Mel Tucker obviously left after the 2019 season, and you had a lot of his quality recruits stay for the COVID year in 2020 with Karl Darrell. But Karl Darrell came in here not really qualified to run a top 5 program. Again, he has a history with the Buffaloes program, which I appreciate. He's an awesome guy, I think, but it didn't really bring that energy, didn't engage the kids on social media, or really was very that personable. And so after the COVID season, you saw a lot of our top players that came in here leave. And when you're already struggling to get in athletes, when you already have trouble recruiting certain states, having kind of a timid, boring personality head coach isn't going to do you any favors. And so that's where really CU football has been the last handful of years, where, again, 4 wins out of 6 games in 2020, but again, 4-8 with 2021. We've had even more transfers leave after that year. And now really what it came down to is a 1-11 football season. And so I think the athletic director, Rick George, who has a long history here with Colorado, I think that one of the things that he realized, that if we were going to compete, if CU was going to compete, we really needed to get on par with eliminating some of these outdated academic restrictions. So what does this look like from a practical level? Say you have a student athlete that's looking to transfer that has been working towards a physical ed degree or a general studies degree that most colleges will offer. CU doesn't offer that, so your credits don't transfer, and so you're already behind in your degree program if you're going to come here. That's if you even qualify from a grades perspective. And I think Rick George interviewing for other AD positions this past fall in 2022 really put some pressure on the university to decide, okay, do we want somebody like the high-quality athletic director, Rick George, to leave and really us just be competitive on a Mountain West level, or do we want to listen to him? Do we want to see what he has to offer? Again, he was the one bringing in, let's make a big-time hire, but somebody like Coach Prime is not going to come in here unless we're on an even playing field from a transfer and academic standards level with the rest of the country. Again, some of these standards are there, up there with Stanford or Cal or Notre Dame, and CU is a good public school. We're an AAU accredited school, one of 63 in the country, but we're not at the level of some of those schools, and there's no reason to carry that elitist mentality into college athletics, because Coach Prime's not going to come here if he's not on a level playing field recruiting wise, and I think gave a big challenge to the boosters and the institution of, are we going to reinvest in this again? Now, another point that I wanted to bring was because our football record and our football experience has been so poor the last 20 years, I really do think that CU was okay giving Coach Prime, his family, and his team kind of the keys to the car in a sense when it came to how they're going to operate on social media, and really being okay with him being bigger than the brand of Colorado football. And I don't think a lot of schools were necessarily okay with that. Do I think that that's an issue? I'll let you decide, but I know as a Buffs fan, I have no issue. Whatever Prime wants to do, he can do it. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this video. I hope that provides more context on where CU football has been the last 20 years, why it got that way, but really it was some of this disastrous stuff that led Coach Prime to Colorado, because we were finally ready as a university to relax on the academic restrictions. And because of Coach McIntyre, we were on board with investing in the facilities again. So again, thank you for checking out my video. I want to know, was there something that you learned in this video? Are there other things that you want to learn now? Having seen this video, what do you expect from Coach Prime this year? Let me know if you're going to be at the spring game again. I'm David. I talk CU Buffs football and Coach Prime. Thanks again, and Go Buffs.